think everybody already knows Jim. I don't know if I can introduce him more than lots of other people have introduced him, but Jim's been a huge friend of ours for many years and has shown lots of us how to do stuff. So tonight he's going to show us again how to sharpen all of these things. Or some of these things.
Some of them.
So thank you very much, Jim.
Thank you very much for being here. I started woodworking 65 years ago, and I've worked off and on since then. My first piece, when I was 15 years old, I made it for my church Sunday school class. I went back to my 50th high school reunion in 2013. Went to church where I grew up. And after the service, the lady tapped on my shoulder behind me. She was actually a friend of my mother's, not mine, but we knew each other. And after we finished with the hello, how do you do stuff, I asked her if she would help me find that table if it's still there. We found it in 10 minutes. They're still using it. It's extremely wobbly. It's a wonder it hadn't collapsed. Tonight, I want to talk about sharpening. I'm going to focus on chisels and plane irons. But the principles apply to anything you want to sharpen. And I'm going to deviate to some of those non-chisels and non-plane irons and then go back and forth. We're going to try to go the PowerPoint back to watching me do something, back and forth. I just hope it works. So let's get started. I'm going to have some definitions scattered throughout this. There's a lot of slides. Some of them will take 30 seconds. Some of them will take 2 or 3 minutes. First definition, I'm going to try to define sharp. A sharp edge is formed by the intersection of two surfaces at an acute angle. Either one can be flat or radiused, or both of them can be flat or radiused. But examples, this bowl gouge on the left is radiused on both surfaces. The chisel on the right is flat on both surfaces. I've got a plane iron right here somewhere that came out of a scrub plane. This plane iron is flat on the back, very radiused on the front. So the definition is two surfaces that intersect at an acute angle. But there's another caveat. There's a tendency to roll that edge over, around that edge over. Back, I'm going to say 7 or 8 years ago, Gary Rokowski wrote an article in Fine Woodworking, where Fine Woodworking invited some people who had a great deal of trouble sharpening. They went out to his shop is it in Washington or Oregon, somewhere out there, Portland. And what he did was he showed that this one particular guy who could not get a sharp edge, what he was doing wrong. He was rounding the edge over. There was no intersection. It looked sharp to him, but it was far from it. And this is basically what he was doing. He was polishing one of his surfaces with a buffer. That wheel just wraps around the edge, and if you do it long enough, it'll just round it over. So you got to be sure you maintain that intersection. Now, the acute angle must take into account the basic shape of the tool. I'll give you an example in just a second, and the characteristics of your wood piece. You can get a very sharp surface, but your wood may not behave with it sharpened the way you sharpened it. Then you have failed in what you were trying to do. You still may have a sharp edge, but you need to take into account what you're going to do with that edge. And then thirdly, tool metallurgy. We're not going into that, but you can drill down on the web and find a lot, especially from Ron Hawk, if you want to go there. Here's a couple of axe heads, sharpened very differently because they're used for different purposes. Both edges can be sharp, but the splitting axe will not work very well for chopping and vice versa. Now, sharpening is the process of braiding away metal, leaving coarse grooves, and then removing those grooves with ever finer abrasives while maintaining the acute angle. These are my definitions. And by the way, I meant to say, this is the way I do things. There must be at least 150 or maybe 1,000 other ways to do many of these things. This is, and you can't, there's no way I can talk about all of them. I don't know a fraction of them, but this is the way I do it. And I don't want to cast any disparaging remarks on anybody else who does it differently. They can get the same results. How do you know an edge is sharp? Two things to look at. You examine the edge and then test the edge. Well, the way I examine the edge is I hold it up and look for any nicks. How does it feel? Is any noticeable damage? Sharpening creates a burr on the back side. Or if you're smoothing this side, you're going to create a burr over here. You got to be sure that comes off because it's not sharp if the burr is still on there. We're going to go into that in a little bit of depth in a few minutes. Both surfaces need to appear polished and shiny. I'm going to mention this later on, but the more highly polished the surface, the sharper it's going to be and the longer it'll last. That's across the board, whatever you're sharpening. Hold the edge up like so and look straight at it. When I say here, hold it up in a good light. This light in here is very bad for what I'm talking about here, but you hold it up and look straight at the edge. If you can see the edge, it's not sharp. Take one of your kitchen knives and hold it up. And look at that edge, and you will see little shiny spots. And if it's very dull, won't be a spot, it'll be a line. It's not sharp. It's time to sharpen it. And then you can use a jeweler's rouge or a magnifying glass, whatever, look at the edge, and you'll see things that you didn't see with your naked eye. The next thing is test the edge. Does it cut? Are you satisfied with the way it cuts? The way to test an edge is, I can't imagine them giving away a dull knife, but the worst things have happened. Yeah, that's sharp. That paper trick there, if you have a nick in the edge, it'll show up. It'll go smooth. You hit that nick and it'll telegraph right to you. You'll know exactly when you get there. Now, I see 4 different steps in sharpening: the grinding, and then the honing, and the polishing, and the burr removal. And I put the middle two in brackets because the line between them is very blurred. It's just a matter of degree. The finer grits are used to polish, and a little bit more coarse is honing. But you're doing the exact same motion in the exact same way, the same place, just on a different stone. Now, edge geometry. A lot of tools, especially chisels and plane irons, have a primary bevel. This would be the primary bevel. It's the grinding. It's what you would do on a pinch grinder, a Tormek, or even on a stone. So I've drawn a little diagram up here to mimic a plane iron or a chisel, either one. I can polish this edge if I want to. It's a lot of work. It's a big surface. But if I present this edge to a stone, if this is a stone and this is an edge, and I present them like so, I'm polishing a large edge. But if I raise this thing up just a little bit, like so, now I'm polishing the underside of it, maybe 2 millimeters wide. I've reduced the effort to get it sharp. All the work's done down here. Chisel or plane iron or any other tool you want to, carving gouges, turning tools. They're all the work's done right out where the sharp edge is. To some degree, it makes no difference what's happening upstream of that. So that small edge we're putting on there is called a micro bevel or a secondary bevel. And when that one gets too big, tilt a little more, and people call that a tertiary bevel. Now, the primary bevel can be made on an abrasive rotating wheel, bench grinder, if you will, or a flat surface. In either case, they can be motorized or hand-powered. They can be wet or dry. Mix them up any way you like. If you do it on a grinding wheel, you're going to come up with a primary surface that looks something like this. The radius of radius of this is the same as the radius of wheel you had it on. Assuming you didn't move it around, it should be the same. Now, this is a somewhat weak edge here. There's not much metal there. That's the downside of it. Now, of course, this is exaggerated a great deal for emphasis, but you get the point. A lot more meat behind the edge between my fingers here than compared to here. And so here's what they look like. If you can have a chisel or a plane iron, and as I said earlier, either surface could be rounded or flat. But if you want your chisel or plane iron to work well and perform what they're intended to do, the back has to be flat. A plane has a chip breaker, and this screw tightens the two together, and if they don't meet in an extremely tight joint, the chips are going to go between these two pieces of metal and choke the plane. And if the back isn't flat, the screw's not going to collapse it and make it flat. So both the chip breaker and the iron have to be flat on the back. Same thing with the chisel. If I'm chopping dovetails or anything else, I usually am taking a chisel and setting it in a knife line and either pushing with my hand or hitting with a mallet or whatever. I want this flat. I don't want to chop down and come up with a radius curve, either convex or concave. It needs to be flat. Many tools, as I said, are designed to be round, like this. Carving, I've got a lot of carving gouges, big ones and small ones. And when you start changing the geometry, you got to change how you sharpen them. If you're going to flatten anything, you must do it on a flat stone or flat piece of glass or whatever it is. It has to be flat, and here's why. The yellow thing here is your stone. Let's say it's hollow. This is, of course, it's exaggerated greatly. But if I'm moving on this here from right to left on the screen, I'm going downhill. The point of contact between the plane iron and the stone is on the heel, because I'm going downhill. It's going to bottom out and come uphill. The point of contact is going to be over on the cutting edge. If I do that enough, the whole bottom edge is going to be convex. But you will only be sharpening at that one point where you go uphill. So how many more strokes are you going to have to take to ever get that sharp? You can never get it flat. The stone must be flat. Anyway, you can flatten anything, any tool that needs to be flattened with sandpaper. It's lapping paper, yeah. 3 microns and 9 microns. But you can stick that to the glass in the same way. Great thing about the lapping paper is if I need to remove the burr or sharpen the convex side of any tool like this, I can take a turn or carve a wooden dowel this shape and wrap that lapping paper around that dowel. Every time we put a piece of metal to an abrasive surface, we're going to create a burr. You've got to remove it. And there's 2 ways to do that. For plane irons, all we need to do normally is lay the iron on your finest stone, lay it down, press down right here, and what that'll do is it'll roll the burr up this way. And then this one's got too much radius on it, so let's talk about this one. I did this one earlier on that lapping paper. So here's 3 micron paper. I can remove a burr just like this. Yeah. We need a little water on there. The water, or oil, if you want to use oil, it floats away the swarf. The metal that's coming off of here will show up as black. And you need to float it away. So water not only holds the lapping paper to the glass, it will lubricate and make the movement easier. But the main thing is it floats away the swarf. So this will remove the burr or roll it over, and I can go over this way and roll it over. Sometimes, depending on what it is, that burr will just go this way and that way and this way and that way, and it'll eventually fall off. If it doesn't, you can do this. And people used to do it like this. But you better be going this way and not that way. You end up in the hospital. Now, the other way is what is known as a ruler trick. Guy in England named David Charlesworth came up with this. And I won't give him credit for it, as most people do. This is a verbal description of what he came up with. But this is what it looks like. Instead of just dragging this edge over the stone like so, he took a ruler, something like this one, thinnest one he could find, put it on the side of his stone like so, put the plane iron, not a chisel. Now, if you're going to use your chisel to chop straight down, you don't want to do what I'm describing here. And you'll understand once I finish it. Put the ruler right here, hold it still. This cutting edge is off the edge of the stone, and just pull it back and forth like so. Takes that burr off. Now, in that description of this right here, the word back bevel, in the description here, I circled and struck out the word back bevel, and I'll explain why in a minute, but I'm trying to dance around a potential contradiction, and it'll take me a minute to get there. So this is what it looks like. The ruler, and instead of using a metal ruler, what I use is a little piece of plastic. It's actually thinner than the ruler. So I put a micrometer on this and used it. That's what you see here is the ruler. And on one of these stones right here, which are, I think they're 3 inches wide, and I calculated the angle that we're polishing on the back, and it's less than 1/4 of a degree. Therefore, when you do it, if you pull this back too far, every inch you pull it back or every millimeter you pull it back, that angle is increasing. You don't want to do that. You want to stay way over here. Or don't do it at all. Do it this way. This is much faster, much more efficient, for the same reason that the secondary bevel is more efficient than trying to polish the primary bevel. There's a great deal of difference in the efficiency of your trying to polish that edge. The smaller the edge, the faster you can get it done. This is a photo of David Charlesworth's ruler trick. You see the ruler and the stone, the little the circle and the red arrow there. How far you want to go? Yeah, don't go any farther than that. Suppose we have a chisel, and I hold it up here. I want to do something to this wood. The cutting angle of this chisel is measured from the top of the wood to this edge here, the flat side of this chisel. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to move it with my hand up or down, depending on what that wood tells me it's transmitting to me. Am I against the grain, with the grain? Do I want to go deep? The cutting angle cannot be quantified because it's bouncing all over the place. Even when you push it, if you're digging in this fashion. It's changing constantly. But if I take this chisel and I put it in a holder of whatever description you want to come up with, now we have a plane. That's all a plane is a chisel with some holder to hold it in place. So now we have a cutting angle, and most all planes, the cutting angle is 45 degrees. So you eliminate that change in there, but we get a lot for it. But what if I've got some wood that is talking back to me in a way I don't like? It's tearing out. There's nothing I can do to diminish or totally get rid of the tear out. What can I do? Well, what does a scraper do? If this were a scraper, it would be like so. I work it like this. It never tears out. So what's the difference? Well, the difference is, suppose I took that when it was a plane and I cut a bevel on this side, just a couple of millimeters, maybe 3 millimeters. Now I've changed the cutting angle. If the one I'm showing here is a 10-degree bevel, this is called a back bevel. Where I'm going with this is that what I struck out a minute ago in the little narrative there. So I take a plane iron like this, and instead of presenting it to a stone like this, I'm going to do it like so. Cut a very small back bevel on there. Now I have changed the cutting angle of the whole plane. And that angle can be anywhere from 3 degrees to 25 degrees, depending on what you want. So this drawing here shows that little bevel will change a great deal. There's a great deal of difference between the performance of it like this and the one before where there was no back bevel. So the back bevel, you never do it on chisel, because again, if I'm chopping straight down, they got a back bevel on there. It's not going to continue straight down. It's going to try to follow that bevel. Only on a plane iron. The purpose of this now is to increase the cutting angle to minimize tear out. Now, first thing I'm going to do is try to figure out how to plane this board with the grain. That's the best way to minimize tear out. But sometimes you just can't do it. Some woods do not want to be planed. Purple Heart is famous for not wanting to be planed, for example. But so adding this back bevel makes that cutting angle higher and higher and higher. This is a Stanley number 80 cabinet scraper. Look at that cutting angle. You won't get any tear out with that. If you don't like that, look at this. This is a Stanley number 80. I have one right here. 85. 110-degree cutting angle. You won't have any tear out. Don't use it very often. This one even has the handle and the knob. You loosen the screw and you can tilt them both this way so you can get your knuckles out of the way. So if you're inside a cabinet like so, you won't bust your knuckles, and they'll go either way. So there's another way to do this. This plane right here, these two planes are identical, except one of them is made out of bronze and the other is made out of ductile iron. And you can see that the cutting angles are different by 5 degrees. What I did is I changed the frog. The frog is what the iron beds on. And Lee-Nielsen has them available. It comes with a 45-degree frog, which almost all of the old Stanley planes were bedded at 45 degrees. Some of the Norris planes from England, you could get a pitch of 50 degrees or even 55 degrees. But you just change the frog out. Now, if I have a plane iron that I put a back bevel on, like this one has a 12-degree back bevel on it. The only way to get rid of that back bevel is put a whole new primary grind on it, all the way enough to that back bevel, to the point where that back bevel is gone. That's a lot of work. Now, next time I need it, what am I going to do? So I don't want to do that. I don't want to waste all that metal and all that time. So now this is a dedicated blade. So I get another blade, another iron, switch them out. It takes a couple of minutes to do so. Or change the frog, which is quicker. Well, it's not really quicker. Probably take maybe a little longer. Change the frog out. But I can use the same blade I use at 45, use it at 50. Two ways to skin the cat there, if you will. And there may be some other ways. I don't know. Well, there are here. If all this fails, I got to have a tooth blade. Tooth blade will not tear out, especially if you take a real fine cut. It leaves a very rough surface, which is excellent if you want to attach veneer. Give some bite to it. The whole point in going through this back bevel thing is, do not confuse that ruler trick, which technically puts on a minute back bevel, which doesn't really affect the use of the plane iron. Do not confuse that with a genuine back bevel made for a different purpose. They're not the same. Now, this may be the most important thing I say tonight. Sharpening is more than just producing a keen edge. Sometimes the wood itself will dictate how the tool needs to be sharpened and how it needs to be presented to the wood. So we'll go through that again. You can get a sharp edge that will not do its job. It'll still be sharp, but it won't perform its intended job. So there are other things to consider. Now let's look at sharpening media. Modern day sharpening stones are made of grit particles bonded together to make a solid mass. The manufacturers have 5 things that they consider. Particle size. The bigger the grit, the coarser the stone, the faster it cuts, and the deeper the grooves. It's obvious. The particle shape. If all that grit is round like little marbles, it's not going to be very efficient. It needs to be sharp. And the particle hardness. I can't imagine this ever happening, but if the steel is harder than steel is harder than the stone's going to wear the steel out. If it's the other way around, the steel's going to wear the stone out. Of course, you don't want that. Particle toughness. Well, those sharp particles are going to wear off. They're going to become rounded to some degree. And what the modern manufacturers are doing is making stones that are fragile enough that they break, exposing new sharp edges. But that erodes away the stone, which requires you to keep it flat, as opposed to an old Arkansas stone. It stayed flat forever, but it ceased to cut because all the particles are rounded over. So it's a trade-off. All of it's a trade-off. And the last one is the bond holding them together. The bond has to fail to some degree to get out of the way, so those new particles, which are broken into smaller pieces, can be exposed. Otherwise, you just have that bonding agent up there, and it would, in a sense, glaze over. So, how are they graded? Well, I crossed out this European thing, this FIPA F, because we don't ever see it. I can't remember ever having seen it. I think I lost my video, my audio again. No? Okay. Grading of the sharpening media we use can be very confusing. The diamond stones, I've seen them graded in numbers. Some are graded coarse, medium, fine, extra fine, ultra fine, ultra fine. All of those terms are relative to each other, but outside of that little box, they're meaningless. And then we have water stones and ceramic stones and different manufacturers. If I give you a Norton stone and a Hoshi stone, they're both 600 grit. I wouldn't trust 1 minute they were the same grit, different manufacturer. So how do you compare to the two? Here's a Norton stone in this chart on the left. There's all this information on it. All we ever really care about, if we go to buy one, is 36 grit in this case. You might want coarser, you might want 60 grit, you might want 120, whatever. But there's a lot of information available, especially about the bonding agents and such. Here is a list of media that we use or are available for us. I have used all of these except the Scary Sharp. The two that I have highlighted in red are the ones that I have here tonight. They're ones I use most of the time. And I'm going to demonstrate them in just a minute. But before I do that, I want to talk about cost. I put a lot of these costs in here. I just got them off the web. They were current when I did it, and they may not be current tonight. And I did this, in the last couple of weeks. Sandpaper is cheap. It does a good job, but it's cheap initially. But over time, it'll eat your lunch, because a piece of sandpaper doesn't last long like this. Scary Sharp, I think, is that media, this stuff. And that's, who uses Scary Sharp? Anybody here? Isn't that what it is? Lapping paper. Yeah. Yeah, this is 3M lapping paper here. I think it's available in Scary Sharp. I think it's 8.5 by 11 or 8 by, yeah, something like that. Different grits. I just never have gone there. King stones came out in the 70s, and they were the cat's meow at the time. But they have been replaced, in my view, by much better stones. We have many more options than we had 30, 40 years ago, 50 years ago. And I remember when there was nothing but Arkansas stones. The grading of these things, I'm on sandpaper now, and you need to understand this right here, whether it's used for sharpening or sanding in a finishing process or whatever it is. There are two different schools for grading the media. One is European, one is US. And when you look at the back of the sandpaper, you'll see, like in this case, the Cami scale is 120 in this case, just a number, but the European has a P in front of it, 120. They're not the same grit. That's the point. And so if you're trying to work through a set of increasingly finer papers, and you mix up Cami and FIPA, you're not doing what you think you're doing if you go strictly by the number. So the only way of ever comparing all these various stones, sandpaper, lapping paper, grinding wheels, whatever it is convert the numbers to microns. Now, micron, well, 1 meter, which is almost 40 inches, is 1 million microns. 1 inch is 25,399.999 microns. That's a micron is a very small entity. You cannot begin to see it with the naked eye. These Shapton stones have the micron size written on the back. This one's 14.7 microns. It's a 1,000 grit. The 16,000 grit is 0.92 microns. Now, I don't begin to know how they can measure that. I read that the way they do the diamonds is they take the grit, put it in some oil, and it floats for so many minutes. They pour off the liquid, take what's settled, do it again with some more, and do it again and again and again. The smaller the particles, the slower they are to fall, and they can use that to grade them. They can't measure them. That's the only way they've come up with, I guess. It's very interesting, though. There are lots of charts on the web on how to measure, how to cross-reference these various stones. This is the only one I could find that came close to looking at most everything we are interested in. I've circled up some of the things that I use. You see up on the left-hand side, that red arrow, that column is microns. So you can go down that column and then move to the right, and you can find a number and then go up and see what product it is. Or you can go do the reverse thing, do the same thing. Way over here on the right is the Tormek white paste, 9 microns, if I remember right. This green rouge right here is 9 microns. The Shapton stones are on there. Now, if you look at the 2 boxes on the left, that's the sandpaper. The columns will tell you one's for Cami and one's for FIPA. FIPA's the one with the P. So you can, if you follow the numbers in this chart, you can see where they deviate. Like the 120 and 120, the 120 and the P120 is the same thing, but as you get get finer and finer, the distance between the two gets greater and greater. And you get down here to, let me see if I can see this. P400 is the same as Cami 320. And this will be in the PDF. So, sharpening systems. On the left is a work sharp, which is a horizontal disc. Some of you guys have them, some of you like them. On the right, Veritas. They look very similar. I've never seen the Veritas. Here on the left, we have the Tormek and a Sorby. I'm putting the prices on here too. Bench grinders, entirely different concept, different speed. On the right, I found this WEN, W-E-N, a variable speed bench grinder. I've never seen one before. This may be a piece of Chinese junk, I don't know. I put it up here because it's variable speed. Here's my wet station where I have my Tormek and where I do the hand sharpening. This table is about the right height for hand sharpening, because when I don't want it up here, I want it down here where I can bend over and kind of lock my arms against my body, and I should move like this. So you can see, I'm moving like this. No, I don't want to do this. You lose control. The pressure you're putting down changes. You put pressure on one side when you meant to put it on the other, or vice versa. You got a whole lot more control if you're over your work instead of beside it, and if you're moving with your body, like so. So this needs to be low. So I put this 32 inches, that's what mine is. If your height is different, make it fit you, not me. Here's my dry station. 2 bench grinders and a Sorby Pro Edge system, and all those drawers are full of paper and such that attachments for these tools. My wet station is over here and the dry station is over here. Don't get them close to each other. Each one will contaminate the other one. All of the dry grinding that comes off of this dry system, you don't want anywhere near these wet things. Now for hand sharpening. Honing guides versus freehand. If you take this hollow grind and present it to a stone like so, That fixes your angle. It's easy to do that. That's the only thing I ever do freehand. Lots of people do it the other way. They do everything this way. They claim it fast, and it's faster. And it may be for somebody that does it every day. But for those of us who do it weekends or twice a week, whatever, as amateurs, hobbyists, I use a honing guide. So I want to show you these honing guides. The Lie-Nielsen honing guide is made after this little $15 one that I think it was, the original one was Eclipse made. I think it's made in England. Some of them, they're very poorly made. Some of them I consider to be a kit because it takes a lot of work to get them to function after you get them. But Lie-Nielsen copied that model. It's all made out of stainless steel. Well, first off, it comes with lots of different jaws for sharpening skew block plane blade. The blade for this spoke shave is so short. Most honing guides won't hold that. It's too short. It can't grip it. Or a blade for this shoulder plane. How do you grip that? Well, that's what all these jaws are for. That said, Veritas has quite a different one. This one in the upper left-hand corner, I have one of them here. I don't use it, but there's one here. I have the one that's in this box on the right. And the reason I have it is this Veritas honing guide has a roller that looks like it's 2+ inches wide. The Lie-Nielsen has a very narrow one. Well, if you've ever tried to sit on a two-legged stool, you know what? It's not very comfortable. And the reason is, if I take a narrow chisel, like this 1/8 inch chisel, and put it in here, it'll sharpen it, but it's a two-legged stool. It wants to rock. And so you'll get a rounded edge, rounded in this fashion. So I use this honing guide for narrow tooth. Anything 1/4 inch wide or less, I'm using this. It's the only thing I use it for. I like the Lie-Nielsen for the other things. This makes it like a 3-legged stool, which is very stable. What you see in this photographs here, Veritas makes a radiused wheel. So if you want to put a camber on plain iron or whatever, this is another part that goes with it. But this whole bunch of stuff is $154. Now, if you go on the web again, you'll find probably 100 different honing guides available. And I need to talk about this one on the left. There's 2 problems with it. You can see that it straddles the stone. So it's riding on the bench or whatever it's sitting on. If I change stones, and both of those stones are not exactly the same thickness, then I've changed the angle that I'm grinding. That's a bad design for that reason. But secondly, that little screw that holds the iron in place is a single point, and they will shift on you. And they will move just a little bit, and you won't know it, and you grind something you didn't intend to grind, and now you got to go fix it. So I recommend nobody buy that style of honing guide. Now, the little one on the right is I don't know anything about it, but it clamps on the side, and that will hold the iron where it will not move on you. Point to make here is that no single honing guide will sharpen everything. There never will be one, I don't think. Honing guide setup. Okay, I'm going to take a chisel. I put it in this Lie-Nielsen honing guide if I can find it. And tighten it up. The distance from here to the cutting edge determines the angle. No matter who makes it, that's always the case. So if you can set that distance the same every time, you can repeat the cutting angle. So one of the popular ways of doing that is what you see in this picture. A little piece of plywood, you present the honing guide with the chisel in it, and push it up to that block and then tighten the screw. Move it over to a different block, get a different angle. What I've done, again, I got this from David Charlesworth, is I took a little ruler here, and I measured 30 millimeters from here to here, just like on the screen. Then I took this, turned this thing over, put an angle cube on it, and measured the angle. 30 degrees, just happened to be 30 millimeters, 30 degrees for this setup. So I wrote it down. Then I took 25 millimeters, it's 33 degrees. And I took 27 millimeters, and it's something else. I wrote all this down because I used them. Well, now I go change jaws. None of those numbers work, so I have to do it again. If I were using blocks on plywood, I'd have to have so many blocks. I'd have a stack of them a foot high. And when I changed honing guides to Veritas, I did the same thing. I get it. All these numbers recorded right here. This little sheet right here stays right by my wet sharpening station. All I need is a ruler and this sheet, and I can set it up in no time. I don't have to fool with those blocks, and they do wear out. They get cut by the use. Now, I want to show you how I sharpen. Let's do a plane iron. So I'm going to the first thing I'm going to do is take a Sharpie and color this edge. Not the primary, just this, because this is the first thing that'll wear off, and it'll tell me immediately if I am where I want to be. And I'm going to slightly less than 30 millimeters because I think that's where it is. I'm going to go like 29. I've got 1,000 grit, 8,000 grit, and 16,000 grit. I've already flattened the stones. I did that earlier. This is just water, and I am both hands. I've got a little bit of camber in this blade, not much. 2 fingers right in the middle. Watch what I'm doing with my upper body. Counting strokes. Moving over here halfway between the middle and this edge. Now on this corner. Halfway between the middle and the right-hand edge. Now on this corner. Sometimes it'll take 10 strokes, sometimes it'll take 20. I can barely feel the burr. So I'm going to move over here to 8,000 and do the same thing. I can see this. Can you see the swarf? Can you see that? In the middle, quarter point, and on the corner. Quarter point, and the point. I need to wipe the wheel off as well as the iron. I don't want the grit from the coarse stone moving over on the fine stone. Sometimes I forget to do that. in the middle, quarter point, and the corner. And the swarf tells you that you're doing what you want to be doing. On the right side at the quarter point, and on the right corner. Fairly light. I don't want to dig in. I don't want to damage the stone. And on sometimes you cannot push on the forward stroke. You need to do everything pulling. That protects your stones. I've done this enough that I'm comfortable doing this. I think I've damaged one of these sharpened stones over the years. But I can show you, I can't tell you. A little bit of a burr. Putting pressure out on the end. Oh yeah, I'm honing the secondary bevel. I'm not honing the primary bevel. I'm working on the secondary bevel, so that's where I want the pressures out there where I'm trying to cut.
But the reason you go from side to side is because it's a camber.
It has a camber in it, yeah. I prefer a camber. I want more camber than this, and next time I grind the iron, I'll do that. But now I'm going to use this ruler trick. This is just a little piece of mylar, I think it is. And take just a couple of, like so. That's all it takes. Now, I've got this honing pad here with this green rouge on it. This is 9 microns. But when I rub it into this is the rough side of the leather. This is aluminum oxide, I think it is, in a wax base. Bonds it all together, and when you rub it off, it buries itself down into the leather. And the 9 microns, I think it's probably 3 microns in effect, because it's half buried in the leather. So I'm taking this, and I usually put it up against my belly like this, all by hand. I push pretty hard. Never push on the leather. You will cut it. Always pulling. And I'll turn it over to the back side. If there's any burr left, this will take it off. And then see what we got. That's sharp. This is a carving V tool. This fits it. This is 2 pieces of leather glued together with a green rouge on it that'll fit inside to take the burr off. There's no other way to get in there. Just think outside of the box. You can sharpen anything. Think outside of the box. There's a way to do it.
Thank you, Jim.
Yeah, you bet.